Right, this is my first video blog, so you're going to have to bear with me. But I'm sure I'll get used to it. I've never done this before. I've never felt the need to before, but I'd like to consider myself an educated man. I run my own business. But what I see going on around me disgusts and saddens me. So I'm going to do a series of blogs when the mood takes me, basically, and then I'm going to stick them on YouTube. And they're aimed at people who have got the intelligence to and the willingness just to listen and think about things, and not. I'm sure I'm going to get trolled, and but they're only showing up their own ignorance. It says more about them than it does about me. So if you're interested in what's really going on, as I see it anyway, then tune in. Now, I just listened to, it's the 5th of December today. I'm driving to work. Time is it? 7:30 in the morning. And I just heard a report from Lees Doucette on the BBC, a proud public service broadcaster that produces such gems as Strictly Come Dancing and EastEnders. Also, allegedly supports a massive ring of paedophiles and supports government cover-ups and what have you. Basic propaganda stuff, which is what it was set up for in the first place. The BBC was actually part of the government intelligence services during the war. So, you know, why stop there at peacetime? But she was in Syria, and now the fact that her report was absolutely disgustingly biased. She was talking to these poor people who were being displaced by the war, and the Syrian government, who are the legitimate government of the country and who 95% of the people support, are being shipped back into areas of Aleppo that the government are taking. And the reason they've managed to take it back, and you won't see this on the BBC, is that last week the Syrian army bombed a command and control bunker, and from what I've heard, I can't prove it because it'd be hearsay, so what I've heard is American, British, and at least 4 other nations, Jordanians, Saudis, were killed. They're basically there controlling these so-called rebels, which aren't rebels, they're just CIA-backed mercenaries. The reason that they wanted to destabilise, or not the rebels, the Americans want to destabilise Syria, is because Assad wants to sell his oil in euros, and if he did this, America's already losing control of the petrodollar. So if America, that's lived on the back of the petrodollar since Nixon did a deal with OPEC back in 1973, removed America off the gold standard, if they lose control of the petrodollar, America becomes a third world country. This is what they've lived on the back of, all the gas guzzling cars, massive skyscrapers and all the rest of it. It's all been built on the petrodollar. When people start selling in euros, and Saddam, he wanted to bring in a gold-backed African-wide currency. Gaddafi wanted to bring in a gold-backed dinar. And so they've all been done away with. And if Trump follows the Zionist plan, Iran will be next. So we'll have to see what happens. But the interview, I digressed a bit, but the interview that was done, this alleged reporter, I won't call her a journalist because it was completely biased. She was interviewing a poor guy that had been displaced by the rebels, she called them. Well, she could call them CIA patsies. I've been bussed back in. He had to leave his home because his neighbours, once the area was taken over by CIA stooges, threatened to kill him and his children. So he's moved back in now, and he's happy to move back in. And she was desperately trying to dig out some sort of bad feeling out of this poor guy, and he just wasn't playing ball. So she didn't bother translating the last part of what he said, which I'm sure would have been quite positive. The Syrian government, Syria was one of the most richest countries in the Middle East, but they wouldn't do what the Zionists want them to do. The White House has been run and backed by Zionists now for, well, before the last war, before the Second World War. So that's about all I've got to say on it. I mean, it's disgusting that a public service broadcaster whose charter says that it should be unbiased, and that is clearly about as unbiased as I don't know what. It's just beggars belief. And you know, if you feel strongly about it, or you're in a position to, then don't feed the beast. Anyway, TTFN.